All right, it's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys were definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.
All right. Shalom, shalom, family. We are back. And when I tell you we are back, we are back. Today I have the honor, and I even want to say the privilege, of introducing our host who will be joining me. I usually refer to people that join me as the co-hosts. After the first couple of minutes, you will understand why I'm also referring to him as the host of this podcast. This is a brother that I've come to have and form great admiration for, great genuine brotherly love for, and a huge amount of pure respect for. When a man or woman is for the Most High, you see it in their works. You can tell a child of God because everywhere they go, with everything that they do, they introduce people to who this God is. And this is this brother here. So without any further ado, it's with great honor and with great privilege that I'm able to say shalom to my brother, Ashriel Moore, also known as Ashriel Ben Yisrael. Shalom, Aki.
Shalom, my great brother. And you know, when people say so many great things about you, and say that it takes one to know one. So I can reverse all of those things, right back to you, because I've been following you for a long time. And, the immense knowledge I learned from you, the respect that I have for you, the honor that I give you, as one of the great teachers in the Israelite community, and not only to the Israelite community, but to our family, wherever they may be found, is one that is second to none. And I do appreciate the work that you've been doing and that you do. And you don't know how much you inspire me, so I wanted you to know that as well, that you have that type of effect on brothers and sisters. You may just been started following me, but I've been following you for a long time. And a lot of what I know actually came from, some things that you had shared that I needed to go and to research deeper. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate you and how much I love you and how much is an honor for me to even be invited to your platform, my brother. I mean, I don't take this lightly at all. I'm very appreciative of it. And thank you. Thank you.
There are rare moments in time where I have to stop and just pause for a moment, and just trying to capture and imagine that this is a really powerful moment. Rarely in our community are we graced with the, I want to say, the chutzpah to give one another our flowers in the hearing and sight of one another. Oftentimes, a person is delivered their just due as their eulogy. And that has to be a problem in our community, and that absolutely has to stop. There's an elder that passed not too long ago. You know this elder as well. You've met him, More Mishael. More Mishael is someone that I know from childhood. Where you and I have a similarity is for you, and we're going to go into your bio in a couple of moments, but I just want to say from the outset, for you, you were born in the Israelite way of life to parents that, began their journey here in America and had you in Israel. And for the last 30 years, all you know is Torah. All you know is the God of Israel. Where you and I connect in that respect is that while I wasn't born in this way of life, I came into this way of life in 1994. That was 30 years ago. So just as for you, the last 30 years, this is your entire life. Yes. I have to say, with all due respect, for me as well, for the last 30 years, this has been my entire life's work. And so without any further ado, my opening question, Ashriel, is to ask you. And by the way, I would like to know how I should recognize you, because I do believe in recognizing a person by their rank and file and by the titles that they hold. And I'll just briefly explain why. For many years, I wouldn't tell people that I was known as a moray in the community, that I was considered a chief in the community. For many years, I wouldn't tell people that. People just knew Zion Lex, the guy that debates. People didn't know me as the congregational member, who was a student of a person like Mori Mishael, who used to visit my congregation, Shema Israel, all the time. Just to give you a little gist of my background, my teacher, Hanasi Prince Seppor, was brought into this way of life in the late 1960s, early 1970s by Mori Mishael.
Wow.
So, and I know all of Mori Mishael's children. So we all know each other for many, many years now, 3 decades, 30 years. And so again, we have a lot in common, and a lot of that commonality we'll revisit. But I want to say for you now, it's important that I, if there are, acknowledge you by titles, because a teacher told me recently, I get it that you're humble, and I get it that you genuinely believe that a person's walk and journey should be more telling of their title. That teacher said to me at that same junction, he said, at the same token, if a person just knows you as Zion Lex and a debater, they may limit that feature that you describe yourself as, so as to not even realize that you also teach in the community. You're doing community work. You're a community activist. And, you have several skill sets. This is why titles are necessary. So I'll ask you that if there are any titles that you go by, I would certainly like to address you as such this afternoon.
I would say, Rav, brother Zion, that it's not just about the humility, but it's about the importance of being able to also remain in such a position where you are relatable to the people. Mm-hmm. And I think that Malcolm said it the best when they used to present him at some of his talks and interviews, and they wanted to say all of the grandiose things about him and his position or whatever. He just said, make it plain. Because in such a case where you are doing the work, you are representing, then the work speak for themselves. And so you don't need titles in order to do what you're doing already. Because if you're already called to do something, then you're called to do it. Before you became the Rav Zion Haggadah, you were already doing the work. Before you became a chief in the community, you were already doing the work. Before you became known, as a teacher, you were already teaching. And so they only gave you those titles because this is what you were already doing. And so those works speak for themselves. But if you have to know, then I am an ambassador of the African Diaspora Collective here in Israel, representing the various African communities in Israel. We have the Afro-Bedouin community, Afro-Palestinian community, the African Hebrew Israelite community, the Ethiopian Beta Israel community. We have the asylum seekers community, and we have the African-American Jewish community. And in addition to that, I am a representative of my community, the African Hebrew Israelite community, and a very vocal advocate for the rights and everything else that comes along with that for the marginalized Black communities here in Israel, in regards to the representation of them to the government, and to make sure that we continue to bring up all of the injustices that our people experience here. But not only the injustices, we also want to highlight the accomplishments, because it's not all bad. There are a lot of great things that we managed to accomplish from Israel that we have given to Israel, but there are a lot of other things also that we have to deal with that we are experiencing from specifically the Israeli government and some of the governmental institutions. And so we want to make sure that we have a very clear balance, because people who are not very aware of, the entirety of the work that we're doing here, they would think that we are just experiencing all bad things and we have nothing to show for it. And so that goes with people asking the question, so what are you all doing there? And why did you go there? And you need to come back to America and all of those things. Because the judgment is on Israel and all of those things. But we have a mission, and we carrying out that mission, and our works speak for themselves. So I know that was, you asked me something specific,
Yes.
but I had to add that on to it so that we could be able to at the least segue into the conversation with that understanding that that is the lens that I look through.
Okay, so with that being said, take us through a journey of acclimating ourselves with who Ashriel Moore is. Tell us about your beginnings. I certainly alluded to you being born in this way of life, but I'm sure you'll be able to provide more. Tell us more about the origin story of Ashriel Moore, Ben Israel.
I was born and raised in Israel in 1991 to parents who had come. One of my parents was actually one of the pioneers who had left America in 1967 following the vision of our leader and teacher, the Honorable Ben Ammi, Ben Israel. And he left America with the intention on coming back to repatriate in Israel and to establish here this community, this kingdom of God that we have here today. And so he left America, went through Liberia, experienced the hardships of Liberia, and then came to Israel and experienced everything all the way up until he passed away in 2007. I was born also to a mother who was not looking to come to Israel. She didn't want to come to Israel. She said that that she had heard the voice of the Holy Spirit speaking to her multiple times, saying, you need to go to Israel. And every year she would say, well, I'm not going to Israel. What is it that I need to? Because she was heavy in the church, right, in America. And she was actually living, what they would call the American dream, had a nice house and diamond rings and 2 cars and, everything that people look to accomplish and achieve in America. She had done that. And so every year she would say, well, I'm not going to Israel. I'm going to go here. Or I'm going to go there. She'd take vacations to different places. But it was one time that the Holy Spirit had spoken to her and said, go to Israel. And she tells the story that she was in a room alone and she felt herself thrown from one side of the room to the other. When she got up and looked around and didn't see nobody in the room, she said, I'll go to Israel. She came to Israel in the early 1970s and she never looked back. She's been in Israel ever since. And so both of my parents, they actually met in Israel, where my father had already had children. My mother had had 9 children and her previous husband had passed away. And so, they then came together and they created me, which I'm the only child from the both of them together. And I was born and raised in the community. Now, let me tell you this also. My mother tells it that when I was, before I was born, the doctors told her that she had a heart condition and she had a 50-50 chance to live because she was 48 years old talking about having a baby. Now, in the 1990s, early 1990s, having a baby at 48 years old wasn't regular.
Come on.
And so they said that she had a heart condition. They said that she had a 50-50 chance to live. They said that I was placenta previa. They said that I was breached. When I was born, I was resuscitated. And they said that most likely because she's having a child at such an old age, as they would see it, most likely I'll have a Down syndrome. So, they said everything that they could say to her in order to cause her to get rid of me. But she said that she had to go through it anyways, because she said that the Holy Spirit had spoken to her, and she still have these earrings until this very day. But she said she was 100% sure that she was going to be having a girl. 100% sure. The checks back then, the gender checks or whatever, it wasn't as it is today. And so she still has these earrings, and she said she was 100% sure she was going to have a girl. And she said that the Holy Spirit spoke to her and told her she would have a man child and he would be great in the midst of his people and that she should watch him closely. And then I was born. and raised in the community in Dimona, in Israel, in a family of 15 siblings from both ends together, in a home with approximately 35 people and 5 bedrooms, which wasn't usual either because of the conditions that we were living in the early 90s in the community. Trying to trying to overcome a lot of the experiences from the Israeli government. So we had to make do with what we had.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And I matriculated through the school system that we have here, the Achva school, the Brotherhood school that we had established in 1993. And that was, going through from pre-K all the way up until 12th grade, being in Hebrew Israelite school that we had established with the same friends from kindergarten up until 12th grade, the same peers, the same community members. These people I knew from pre-K up until 12th grade, raised in a community. Zion, listen to this clearly. Raised in a community where I didn't experience no drugs, no alcohol abuse, no gang violence, no gunshots, no locks on the doors. You can just go into any house and pick something out of the refrigerator and, it's wide open. Not being afraid to walk around in the evening time. You're just free to move around as you wish. And you know that somebody's going to be looking out for you. So my parents were never worried about that. We had the curfews or whatever. And if you didn't come in before the curfew, then you were in trouble. But outside of that, they weren't, worried about us moving around outside. This is the kind of community, this is the kind of environment, that I was brought up in. An environment that gave the Torah precedence over everything. An environment that all I knew was the Torah, the biblical holy days, the Sabbath day as the day of rest, 8-day, going through circumcision. All of these things were a norm for us. Raised in a community that is fully vegan. So I never had, experience with meat, eggs, dairy, or any other animal byproducts. This is just, this is just normal. This is regular to us and for us. Raised in a community that I always took pride in because, one, we didn't know how much of the material things we were missing because that wasn't what we were even focused on. We were happy and satisfied with what it is that we had, that I had at the least, growing up in this community. Seeing celebrities that you only see on TV, like Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown and Amari Stoudemire and Blair Underwood and Megan Good and Stevie Wonder and Mama Mandela and seeing all of these people coming in, Martin Luther King III, the SCLC leaders, government officials.
Tiffany Haddish,
we brought her. I just knew, it can't be any better. If it's all bad, what are they coming here to see?
Come on.
What are they coming here to experience? And it can't be the stucco houses that we have. It can't be that they're coming all the way over here just to see some Black people, living in, and not the best conditions because of the experiences that we've had with the Israeli government. They had to be coming to experience something else. And I would be the one to say that they were coming to experience that spirit that exists, that thrives in our midst, the spirit of those people who were speaking about returning to Zion for 2,000 years when they left. Those people who were talking about, by the rivers of Babylon, where we sat down and there we wept when we remember Zion. Those people who were, our ancestors, when they were walking in the fields and they were saying, I looked over Jordan and what did I see coming forth to carry me home? A band of angels coming after me, coming forward to carry me home. Those people who were talking about beyond the Jordan River, those people who were talking about they wanted to walk where Jesus walked. I'm here. I was born here. I was raised here. I've been to the Galilee. I've been to the Salt Sea. I've been to Jerusalem. I'm living in the Judean mountains. This is my experience. So for me, if you really want to know, all of that encapsulates who and what I am. It's those experiences and the people that it laid the way to be able to allow me to be raised in such an environment that created the type of person that I am. And you can randomly choose any other person from the community who would experience the same thing, yes, we may have different experiences, within the community, because I mean, every individual have their own experiences. But nonetheless, this is what we know. 30 years in, this is what I have experienced. I don't know anything else. I've been around, yes. I've experienced a lot of other things in a lot of other places, absolutely. But this is the experience that people were coming from all over the world to see. And that is Ashriel. Ashriel is a product of his environment. That environment that my pioneers created amongst them, my father and my mother, to be able to allow me to sit here to speak to you from Dimona in the Judean mountains.
Look at that. Look at that. Thank you for that. I mean, that's a rich history, and that's something for us all to be proud of. Number one, one of the things I've always found intriguing about the Village of Peace, the African community of Israelites in Dimona, is that your vegan lifestyle. My dad adopted a vegan lifestyle, I want to say almost 40 years ago, right? And it has changed him a lot. He was diagnosed with a very rare lung condition known as sarcoidosis. Bernie Mac passed from this condition. When my father was diagnosed with this condition, he immediately decided that this is not what I want. I'm not going to go this way. And he had come from a lifestyle of eating flesh. So he completely stopped cold turkey. He began to research herbs. And that is where his journey has been for the past 40 plus years. And even though I consume flesh to this day, I have benefited a great deal from his knowledge of herb working and knowledge of how to use vitamins and minerals and combine certain foods to curate the body. So I remember our teachers telling us in the early 90s that the Village of Peace in Dimona, diseases that are rampant in the African-American community today, high blood pressure, diabetes, fibroids, cancer, is virtually non-existent. Moy Mishael has gone there several times. And not only does he return to speak of the hospitality and to speak of the kindness and the richness of character there, but he returns with this word of, I didn't see nobody that looked sickly. The light on the face of these people can illuminate the dark. That's a different type of healthy living where we've all encountered someone that actually looks like the message that they're speaking, right?
Yes.
When you look at Ben Ammi as he would speak, the man looked like the message that he was speaking. He lit up from the inside out. You could see it on his face, on his skin.
Yes.
That's the Village of Peace.
Yes, sir.
I watched an interview of you a couple of weeks ago where you were speaking of the vegan lifestyle, and the interviewer said, well, you look very healthy. Which is a no-brainer, because again, the teachings of the Torah has become a lifestyle, and your community in Dimona has become for the world, moreover, a template to follow. And in this respect, I say the world moreover, because at the end of the day, good brother, we're a light to the nations.
Yes, sir.
So yes, it's understood immediately that Israelites should benefit from this observation that's occurring, but the world is watching you.
Yes.
I have watched TV outlet from TV outlet, news outlet to news outlet, all want to interview you. The world is watching you. The world is watching your community. There's something that was done right. There's something remarkable that was spearheaded at the end of the 1960s, something that we'll touch on towards the close of this conversation, because I felt that even though you're not the first representative of the Dimona community that I've interviewed Sarah Amadiel, someone who I also look up to and have a great deal of reverence and love for, because of the power of your community. I decided that with you, I wanted to close the dialogue with highlighting and speaking towards the greatness of what Ben Ammi did and the implications today of the work that he has done yesterday, and how it should continue on, not just through his direct lineage, his students, but from all of us. From all of us. And it takes humility, right, in a wise mind to be able to see that while I may not have been connected to that community, it's a no-brainer that when something's working, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. We have a template for something that's successful. So at that point, the only thing that need be done is for everybody else to join in. Too often in our community, people are not vested in the forward lateral movement of an organization because they want to know at the end of the day, is my name going to be in the shiny lights? And that's a travesty, because when work needs to be done, whether you're acknowledged for the work or not, the work needs to be done. Somewhere in the Psalms, David says, even if I was a doorman in the kingdom of Yah, in the house of the Creator, that's what I would do.
Yes, sir.
Opening doors.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Yes,
When
sir.
you have an opportunity to do something great in the name of the Father, then it doesn't matter that my name is not in the credits. Because at the end of the day, the fact that I put in work in, my credit is coming from the Creator.
Yes,
my
sir.
name is etched in
sir.
of all.
Yes, sir.
I'm on a tangent.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I want to say,
Yes,
we're
sir.
looking for material acknowledgement.
Yes.
We're looking for our names need to be on the forefront, the skyline, forgetting if you have your hand and foot in towards the work necessary for the uplift and the building and the curating of the community and of the kingdom of Yah, then your name is etched in the book of life, which is the most important place for it to be mentioned.
Come on, good brother.
Yes, so that's the kind of mentality that we have to adopt.
Yes.
On that note, I'm amped. I told you behind the scenes,
listen to you all day.
That when I have a strong person, side by side, it affords an opportunity for me to come out of my comfort zone as an interviewer and kind of really get engaged. So I say to you in this moment now, as we build and develop the conversation rightfully, how would you describe, in more ways than one, what exactly is the theology of the Bible and Torah? If our listening audience was completely ignorant to the teachings of the Bible, and you are standing here as not just an ambassador of the African collective, but as an Israelite, we are an ambassadors of the Almighty. We are Malkut Kohanim, a kingdom of priests, right? And by the way, y'all, I'm not going to be bopping off the mouth with too much Hebrew today, because unlike us, for him, Hebrew is his first language. A couple of moments, I'm going to have him give you guys a teaser so you can see just how fluent he is. Now, I teach biblical Hebrew, but as Ashriel can tell you guys, there's quite a difference between being able to say that I can read from the Tanakh Be'ivrit versus entering a dialogue. As you know, there are several people that come from the United States, Israelites. I can read Hebrew. And, you know, we're accustomed to reading Hebrew in a synagogue setting. But the moment a conversation ensues, these same people that are Hebrew teachers here in America are like this.
It's the truth.
Listen, so on that note, describe for us, Ashriel, what, in your view and your teaching, what would you say is the theology of the Bible and Torah?
The foundation, from what we understand, see, what we did was we took what we call spirituality and made it into practice, which means that we took the Bible. We said, no longer are we just going to read the Torah. We're going to be the Torah. We're going to embody what the Torah is supposed to look like with a walk-in, example of how that looks. And so for us, the Torah is the, as it is, the instructions, lehorot, more, hore, a teacher, a guide, somebody who's supposed to guide or at least pave the way for you going forward. A compilation of those laws and commandments and statutes that are supposed to keep us in alignment with who we are as Israelites. Those laws and statutes and commandments that are supposed to bring us into closer relationship with the God of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's supposed to be something that you could actually see it's supposed to be verifiable. So for us, we don't just read the Torah and try to understand the theological basis of it. But what we do is we look at the Torah and we understand the laws, the commandments, the ordinances, and what they are supposed to represent in our lives. And so we take those apart and we implement those things into our life so that we could be able to prove if what is being said is true and is right, or is this just a bunch of nonsense that somebody had written sometime a long time ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, whenever that may be, but it has no basis in truth. So we take the Torah and we try to implement it into our lives to see if it really works. So if you say to us that that Genesis 1:29 says that I've given you every tree bearing herb that they should be for you to meet as meat, I want to know if those trees could actually give me all the nutrients that I need in order to revitalize my inner organs. I want to know if just eating from the ground would actually allow me to be able to continue to function, or all of my systems to function as they should. I want to know that when Yah says to us that thou should not kill, thou should not steal, thou should not bear false witness against your neighbor, love God with all thy heart, soul, and might. I want to know what the benefits are for doing such. I don't want to know what the curses would be, because we speak a lot about the curses in the Bible, but we don't speak too much about the blessings in the Bible.
Come on.
About the great benefits that we could get from following the commandments. We speak about, our people falling because we didn't follow the commandments, but we don't speak about that first portion in Deuteronomy where it tells you all of the blessings. Here are all the blessings that you are going to extract and you're going to receive and you're going to experience by you being in alignment with what this Torah is giving you. So for us, the Torah is simply the direction that will allow us to be in harmony with creation that we were created from, with the creatures that are our cohabitants on this planet, and our Creator, who's the one who laid it out for us. So we get the guidance. You don't leave a car lot without getting the guidance on how to operate this vehicle. We didn't make ourselves. And so because we didn't make ourselves, then I'm sure that it has to come with a manual. That's that manual that it comes with is that Torah. So that Torah lays out the foundation for us. This is how you would be on the up and up. Now, if you choose to go in a different direction, these are the consequences for going in that different direction. So when you say, Rob, that we look like what we're actually teaching and we're living it, it has to be something that is verifiable. And so we are the living testimony of what it says in that book, that it's just not a compilation of words. It's just not a compilation of books. It's just not something from thousands of years ago. It's the same manual that men, as long as we've known men to be, could follow, and you could still get, let me tell you a secret. Even if you haven't been following it up until now, that don't mean that what's written there is not true and right.
Come on.
And so you can't just disprove it by saying, I don't live that lifestyle because that's not me. Well, the Bible is just not a book of theology. And the Bible is a director for how living life in accordance with these principles. This is what you should expect to receive in return. Everybody can try it. Everybody can live in accordance with it. Everybody read the Bible.
Come on.
But not everybody understand what they're reading. You can read all you want and you could be able to quote all of the scriptures as much as you like. But if you're not living a life in accordance with that anybody that looks at you could be able to then take an example from you and say, brother, I don't know what it is that you're reading and what you're following, but whatever it is that you're doing, I want some of that.
That's right.
If you're not living that type of lifestyle that is appeasing to people, that will cause people to then be gravitated to it just by looking at your countenance and saying, brother, you look good. You are living a life that I want to experience myself. Whatever it is that you're doing, put me on that path.
Come on.
The Torah is that path. And that's for us, that directorate that could be able to get you from the life that you're living right now to the life that you would actually like to live. And it's open for everybody. So for us, that is the not only the theology of the Torah, and I purposely don't say the Bible, I say Torah, because when you understand what it means in the Hebraic essence and sense, then you're able to understand differently what it is that you're talking about, because words have power. And when we give the proper power to those words and we say those words out loud, then we're activating the spirit of what those words are supposed to represent. And so Torah is the direction, is the teacher, is the guide for a lifestyle that we would like to live. And we have taken that Torah and seen if we could be able to implement it in person and seeing what are the results of living in accordance with that Torah. And I think we're living examples. We're not perfect, obviously. We still got a lot of work to do, like everybody else. But at least we're trying.
At least
we're trying as much as we can. We didn't come back because, we didn't come back to Israel because it was just a haphazard decision. When we read that Torah and it said that I will return the remnant of Israel and of Judah back to the promised land, we believe that. When it said that, I would do nothing but reveal my secrets to my servants, we believe that. And so when people were saying that they received a revelation, the only way we could tell if it's true or not is by the results that they bear. So I could say that my leader and teacher actually did hear the spirit of God guiding us directly back home at the time that we came back home, because here I am. Here we are. Look what we managed to do. Now, today, people are starting to think about it. But it said, get out of her, my people, that you may not be partakers of her sins and of her plagues. It said that a long time ago, but people are just now starting to understand what that meant because of the experiences that we're experiencing socially and economically. And they don't even give the spiritual aspect any room. But we gave the spiritual aspect room first. We said we tried everything else. That didn't work. So evidently something else has to work. And that something else for us is that Torah.
That's right. That's right. On the conversation of the curses of Deuteronomy 28, often in this Israelite paradigm and even greater community, we say that we are Israelites because we identify with the curses. So that we say that the Israelites and the Israelite narrative is built mainly in the eyes and thinking of many upon Deuteronomy 28:68, that we came here to the shores of North America by way of slave ships. We've been here for 400 years, right? So this encompasses several biblical prophecies where we get to visit Abraham's prophecy in Genesis 15, the 400 years, and how there's a repetition or what is called dualism in prophecy, right? And how this one prophecy can apply to two different eras, right? And even with Deuteronomy 28:68. So where things get interesting is that a teacher said to me, at what point do we stop simply acknowledging that while we identify with the curses so that we come to understand that the curses fit us so we know who we are, but at what point do we realize that people should begin to identify with who an Israelite is by the blessings of Deuteronomy 28? And that's where the African community of Israelites in Dimona have succeeded more than any Israelite community world over, by identifying with the blessings of Deuteronomy 28. Because at a certain junction, in coming into the awareness that I am an Israelite, we had the elders Crowdy, we had Nat Turner, we had Grandma Moses, Harriet Tubman, the Negro spirituals. Yes. People say, how do you know we're an Israelite? Nobody was an Israelite before the white man told you was Israelite. Well, as soon as slavery was abolished, the first thing black people did is say, we are Israelites.
Right.
And they began to build intellectual and spiritual institutions towards the development of that understanding. Yes. And every single Black power movement sprang from that thinking. which is why the modus operandi for success as a Black leader is always built upon the template of a Black Messiah. Something we're going to talk about a little later, right? But while I'm talking Messiah, I want to segue really quick and to ask you, in your view, in your thinking, what is the biblical model of the Messianic King? What is a Messianic King based on the Bible, the Torah's description and definition? And whom are we to be looking for in terms of the personification and fulfillment of that office?
So our leader and teacher, Ben Ammi, taught us, first of all, he had actually a book that he had spoken about, he had written about the Messiah and the end of this world. And he also had another book called Yeshua, the Hebrew Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Christ, that he was helping us to be able to conceptualize the Messiah or the Messianic personage or Messianic personages from the Hebraic thought, not from the Greco-Roman thought. Because today, when people speak about Messiah, they're looking at it from the Greco-Roman thought, as in a person who was here a few thousands of years ago, who had died for our sins, was buried and risen 3 days later, and disappeared somewhere and was crucified on the cross, and is supposed to come back one day in that same person and to forgive us of all of our sins and establish the kingdom of God. We don't see it that way. We understand Messiah from the Hebraic thought, which is Mashiach or Meshichim. And we understand that from the biblical aspect, a Mashiach was one who was brought under the direct rulership, or who was anointed by God. Meshichim were kings of Israel. Meshichim were prophets of Israel. Meshichim were those who were, anybody who would basically come under the direct dominion of God and was operating in that manner. And so a Mashiach for us is not just somebody who's supposed to come back from 2,000 years ago and then everything is just supposed to be all right. Because if I ask anybody, are you expecting the same individual who you called Yeshua to pop up out of a grave and be walking around today after 2,000 years, and you saw him walking and he came and said to you, I am the Messiah from 2,000 years ago? What is going to be your reaction to that? I mean, just being very honest. If your grandmother came back from the grave from 30 years ago and said that I had risen from the dead and I'm back to help to reestablish things, and you see her walking into your house, I don't think that your reaction is going to be an easy one. So the Mashiach, or the Messianic personage, is the continuation of that spirit. Because you remember when Yeshua had went up to the mountain, and they'd ask him, who are you? He asked, who do they say I am? He said, well, Jeremiah or so. It's because he was embodying that same Mashiach spirit. It was because he was continuing in the line of divine. It was because he was carrying out the works of what a Mashiach is supposed to do, to preach the good tidings unto the meek, to bind up the brokenhearted. This is the work that they were doing. And so in our generation, in every generation, you're always going to have those who yield themselves to the work of what they're being called to do and are anointed to do so. These are Meshichim. But it's not just an individual that we're all waiting for to come back after a few thousands of years. Because if that's what we're waiting for, I got to just tell you the truth. We're going to be waiting.
We're going to be waiting. That's right.
We're going to be waiting because nobody is coming up out of no grave to save us.
I want to say something in this moment that might be a revelation to some that may not know by now, and maybe even a revelation to you. But for the first 23 years of my awakening as an Israelite, I came up in the Old Testament communities. right? Such as More Mishael. I'll throw another name out, Cohen Mikael of the Hebrew family of Guyana.
Yes, sir.
That's a man who's Hebrew I've always respected, and it was also one of my teachers that would frequent and teach where I learned.
Yes,
He would always tell us, even since the 90s, get a passport, because coming is a time that the sugar honey iced tea may hit the fan in North America,
right,
and you may not be able to escape.
yes.
He said there's a hub in Dimona that our people are welcome to go to from now. And we have a hub in Guyana that our people are welcome to go to from now, right? So, but coming up in the Old Testament communities never meant for me that I wasn't a free thinker. My father would always tell me that a human being as a defining feature is someone with free will. And any time we're not moving or operating in the capacity of having free will, then we may not necessarily be defined as a human being. And so my father would always tell me that there's great power in being a free thinker. Yes, you can respect, admire, and love even what I say as your father. And yes, you can respect and love what your teachers say. But no one's word should be followed to the extent that we blindly are following them.
Yes.
Because that type of faith is relegated to the word and teaching of the Almighty alone. And in that respect, we also can say Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Because we hold that feature for him and him alone, that if I'm going to blindly follow anyone, it would be the creator. So I say that to say, good brother, that I never believed that Yeshua didn't exist. But in my temples, that's what was taught. The New York congregations, you've become familiar with this thinking. You know that it exists among the Old Testament Israelites here in New York City, which happens to be some of the oldest communities of Israelites, because we go back to the Rabbi Matthews. All of our teachers trace back through that lineage, right? And I'm a product of that lineage, a continuation of it, right? But where I digress, deviate, and separate is that within the last 7 years, I've come to the belief of Yeshua as the Mashiach. And what's interesting about that, which now segues into what you just said, is that there's a conversation that happens in the Gospels where Yeshua asks his followers, whom do they say that the Son of Man is? Some say that you are Elijah. Some say that you are the Christ, Mashiach. Ashriel, you're intelligent enough. I'm intelligent enough. Our audience in the Israelite community is intelligent enough to do and draw for something that we call inference. There's an inference there.
Yeah.
If Yeshua says, whom do they say that I am? And the response from them is, some say Elijah, somebody that died and is no longer here. And some say the Christ, the Mashiach. Then that tells me that they're capturing in that statement a prior thought and thinking that existed among our people, which is first and foremost the idea of how a spirit can traverse beyond the limits of time, and how a person can die, but their spirit does not. So there are some that even hold that the ultimate messianic personality is a spirit that has traversed this world from since the inception of this world. Something that perhaps Micah chapter 5 alludes to, where it says that his origins are Mikedem, before the days of the world.
Yes.
What man can I say his origin is from before the days of the world, unless I'm talking about a spirit that has been here from since the inception of the world, that has continued through the lineage of these great men that we see. So it's not a far-fetched idea to conceive in a personality such as a Ben Ammi, the continuation of not only that same thinking, but that same spirit. To touch on what you said, whom else or what else are we expecting? At a certain point, what we have to come to understand is the Creator uses Moshe and Aharon, and let me not forget, because the scriptures didn't forget, Miriam.
Yes.
Remember, there's a scripture that says, I sent Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, to which I always say, if God didn't forget Miriam, why do we, when we recount the redemption and those responsible. But to touch on the point, Moshe is a galvanizer of the people. But the people still had to step out on that water.
Yes.
They still had to demonstrate faith. Yes. What are we expecting? That the Mashiach would come and be righteousness for us? What if a Mashiach has been among us and we have not known it? What if a Mashiach has came and has gone, so to speak, physically, but the work continues through us? Yes. What else are we thinking? And I'm just, delving right now into a realm of possibilities, nothing concrete, but I'm an open-minded thinker, Ashriel, right? Yes. And I want to draw from what you're saying, because what you're saying is beautiful and wise. And I want to tap into that thinking in forcing our community to understand that the messianic personalities that we are expecting to come may have come and come and come and come, and each time laid a brick upon which to provide an institution for us to build upon further, which requires our further action and interaction and contribution, right? So that the Mashiach ultimately is a galvanizer of men, but not necessarily the one who has to go out and do the work of men. That's for you. That's why Hashem says all throughout the Torah, the Creator tells us affectionately, sin lies at the door and is desired towards you, but thou mayest master it. We are the captain of this ship. We have the power to change things in our life. And if we're waiting, constantly waiting for someone to change what we have the power to do, then we will always be in a state of waiting for someone to come to do what we can do on our own.
Yes, sir.
Which leads me to this part of, because we're still on the theology of the Torah, and I want to jump into politics for a moment and current events, and then we'll touch on the messianic figures of today, where we'll touch on Ben Ammi. But while we're still in the theology of the Torah, my next question for you is, why is the role of the Israelite, as described in the Torah, so imperative towards the Goal of creation? Why is Israel in the Torah throughout its narrative described as an integral part towards the goal of creation? We read where at the end of days, all nations shall grab the garment of him that is a Yehudi, a Jew, and shall say, come and let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Right? So why, in your thinking, is that the case? Why is Israel so integral towards the goal of creation? And what are your personal thoughts on that idea?
When we look at the scriptures and we understand what was the goal of the Israelites, which was to be a light unto the nations, wherein at one point it said that from the word should go forth from Jerusalem, or the law should go forth from Jerusalem and the word of God from Zion. But then also it says that they would come up to the mountain, to the house of Jacob, so we could be able to teach them of our ways. These ways are once again being connected to, these things are jumping up. It kind of took me out of my rhythm.
My apologies.
Okay. When we were created, the Adam, as we were taught by our leader and teacher, Ben Ammi, the Adam, the Chava, that was a civilization that was created for the purpose of carrying out the will of the Almighty God. And how do we know that? Because when Adam and Chava were created, he said, created he them and called their name Adam, and he breathed into their nostrils the breath of life, and then they became living beings. And then he placed them in the Garden of Eden. Most people miss all of that history and think it's just talking about a man and a woman, but this was a civilization that was expected to be that representative of God Almighty on this earth, so that we could be able to then show this is the image because he created us in his image. This is the likeness, because we were to be like him. We are those representatives on this earth. And so as Israelites, we look back to the Genesis, where we were at the zenith, at the top of our game. We don't just look at from the fall and down. We're trying to get back to what we call the Adamic civilization, to the new Adam once again. We're trying to once again embody those elements that the Adam and the Chava civilization were embodied before the fall. We speak all the time about what had happened from the fall of Adam and Eve up until now and the flood and everything else. But we don't ever speak about people who are trying to get back to that place again. We speak about the fallen state, but we don't speak about the rising state. We don't speak about anybody who's looking to once again embody those characteristics that Adam and Chava were created to embody. So it's just not the Israelites, but it's anybody who could be able to see themselves written in that book of life, where when it says to us that I have created you in my image and after my likeness, we want to strive to be that. And so Israelites or others, we have a responsibility to be the representatives and the representation of what that God embodiment is supposed to be on this earth. Now, the reason why we fail each time and other groups didn't was because we were the chosen. We were the ones who were expected to be the light. We were the ones who were expected to carry out this divine mission. But each time that we fail to do so, and I always say that whenever somebody has a call and has a job, and they fail to accomplish that job, they fail to accomplish that calling, that responsibility, somewhere somebody is still suffering because you haven't taken on the responsibility that you're supposed to take on, which would then relieve them of their suffering and of their pain. Somewhere somebody is still waiting for Zion Lex to come along and to once again reconnect to the essence of our beings. Somewhere somebody is hoping that you may develop, in the medical field, somewhere somebody is hoping that somebody develop a pill that could be able to, relieve us of some of, the woes of this world. Our responsibility is to show that by being that light, by operating in accordance with these commandments, by trying once again to strive to become that new Adam, that new Chava, that we could then be able to bring a new lifestyle that will be able to reflect what God would look like in our affairs as Israelites. And so I think that our role and our responsibility, not only do I think this is what my leader, and I have to keep, going back to my leader and teacher, Ben Ammi, because I don't know nothing besides, what he laid down. And then I had to go and prove that to be true. And then we have a living example of such. And so I'm just representing, that thought. Some people could agree, some people could disagree, but I'm just talking about something that for us, we've proven to be true. And we're actually on our path, on the way, looking to reestablish ourselves as that Adam and that Chava in the Gan Eden, not the Garden of, in the Gan Eden.
Come on.
In the Gan Eden. What is Gan Eden? What is the essence of it? It's not just a field or a forest with trees, and you can just eat from this tree and that tree, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is in the midst of the garden, and the tree of life. This is a civilization. These are people who embody specific principles that they're looking to once again establish on this planet as an alternative to the life that we're living today. And so for us, this is our calling. This is our responsibility. As Israelites, our responsibility is to be that Yisrael Li, or Yisrael light to the nations, so that we could be able to lead them out of the darkness that we're experiencing. Because the earth is in darkness. and gross darkness to people. And so somebody would have to lead them out of this darkness. And that somebody would have to be somebody who has a light, who who's up on the watchtower and can look down and could be able to direct you and say, no, well, go left, because I could already see what you expected to experience a little ways down the road. And so for us, we're trying to be those ones who are on the watchtower shining the light, not because we're better than anybody, but because we're the ones who striving to bring an alternative and not just give up and say, this is the life that we have to live. This is what we were given, and just move forward from it. And we're not looking at it from a purely theological perspective. We're looking at it from an actual practical, what can I do in my daily life to present an alternative to the life that our people are living today, to the woes that they're experiencing today, to the lifestyle. What can we do, Zion, so that in 1994, a group of medical doctors could come up to Dimona, Israel, to assess the lives of the people living in Israel, and to determine then that the top 10 ailments that plague our people are not found there?
Come on.
What can we do? Not read, not think, not believe, not talk about. What can we do? And our job is to find out what can we do so that these things could become a reality. Not just spook it. We don't deal with spookism. We don't deal with just reading and just going about your business. It's not going to do you any good. We're trying to activate that spirit that we read about. We're trying to be that light that we were called to be. We're trying to embody that new Adam, that new Chava on this earth at this very moment, because there was a time where a new civilization needed to be created, not because there wasn't no other people on the earth, but because everybody was going in one direction that was in direct opposition to the God of Israel.
That's right.
And so there had to be some people that have said, okay, you know what? When the question is asked, who will go for us? Who should we send? Somebody's going to have to say, I'll go.
I'll be the
one. I don't know what's waiting on me over yonder, but I'll go. I'll be that vanguard for our people.
Come on.
Not only Israelites, but for our people wherever they're found on this planet.
Come on.
And that's what we strive to be. And that's what we should be striving to be as Israelites, as conscious people, as people who really care about our people. We should be striving to do as much as possible, so that we could be able to alleviate some of this pain and this suffering that our people are experiencing wherever they are in the world. Whatever they believe in, that's besides the point. Let's present an alternative to the life that they're living, and let them know that, as Yah said, and he said it was good.
Come on.
After he created what he created, he said it was good. Let's be those, because if our creator created us, then he gave us the power to also create.
That's
so
right.
Let's create what it is that we're able to create that could be able to present an alternative to what we're experiencing today. That's what an Israelite is. Absolutely. And is supposed to be.
Absolutely amazing. So I'm going to act as if I have a virtual tie on. I'm going to loosen it a bit because we're going to get a little controversial. I'm going to step it up a little bit. As an interviewer, I always tell people that the mark of a great interview, and more importantly, a great interviewee and a great interviewer, is that we got to be able to ask those harder questions, not for the sake of controversy, but for the sake of reaching everybody and what everyone would like to have spoken about or towards. On that note, let's talk misnomers. This is a very controversial point brewing in the Israelite community right now, and I want your thoughts on it. You live in Israel.
Yes, sir.
You were born in Israel.
Yes, sir.
You visited the full length and breadth of the land. You probably know where I'm going.
Yes, sir.
There's a thinking that exists right now today in 2024 where we have Google today, we got YouTube today, we have so much access to knowledge and information today, but there is thinking right now that is telling people that Israel is not Northeast Africa, it's South Africa. Ashriel, as someone born in Israel, as someone who has, I'm assuming, attended tours of the land in your younger age, maybe even conducted your own tours to people who are newly coming in.
Yes.
Please teach us how to understand the nature of the need to correctly frame and place Israel where it is in history. Teach us why the thinking that Israel is in South Africa is either correct or incorrect, and that the teaching that Israel is where you live is either correct or incorrect. Teach us.
You know, another one of our teachers, the Honorable Prince Shaliach Ben Yehuda, the eternal dean of the School of the Prophets, he was one of the three main establishers of the community. He always taught us that when you see somebody who is mistaken and you stop to argue with them about their mistakes, or a fool, he said a fool, my bad. Then he said that you put yourself in a position where somebody else who's walking by could look at you all and they wouldn't be able to tell who's the fool and who isn't. You're arguing with somebody about something that's clear. The arguments that they have are not arguments that are based on anything that is biblical. It's not based on anything that is archaeological. It's not even based on various accounts of things. I mean, I could go down the list. Beersheba, where Abraham walked. There's no Beersheba in South Africa. There's no place that you could be able to take and to say that this is where Beersheba exists. There is no archaeological findings of a Jerusalem that was conquered by the Romans and by the Greeks and by the Arabs and by the Mamluks and by the Crusade. There is no Jerusalem that you can be able to point at. If Assyria is near Israel, there is no Assyria near South Africa in the south. When you speak about Egypt, somebody going down into Egypt, if you're going down from South Africa, then you're going to be going down into the sea. There is no Jericho. You couldn't walk from Egypt back into the promised land in South Africa, unless you're saying that the other countries around South Africa somehow house all of this, somehow were overtaken by the Romans in 70 AD, somehow were overtaken by the Greeks in 313. There is no archaeological findings. Nobody is arguing that is. So I'm not going to argue that it isn't. Because nobody is, probably besides some people in the communities that may be arguing about this, but the same way you argue about New York City, for example, and somebody said that the real New York City is in California. There are landmarks. There is history.
Come on.
There is archaeology. There are people who've dedicated their lives to researching this. There are peoples who existed in these areas. I don't know of any Canaanites who existed in South Africa.
Come on.
I've never heard of this before. Nobody has ever talked to me about all of these people existing in that area. When they said the Babylonians came in and overtook the country, or at least the southern part of it. The Assyrians came in and overtook the northern part of Israel. Jerusalem was established by David as the capital of Israel. I don't know of any of this that was found ever in South Africa or any place else besides here.
Come on. While I live, I'm going to interject real quick, right? So where I live, unfortunately, I have to mail out to the state of Israel to get artifacts. But nonetheless, artifacts exist there, right? So I'm holding up the seal of King Hezekiah as an artifact, right? I'm also holding up the seal impression of Isaiah the prophet, right? As an artifact. These are some of the things found in the land of Israel.
Yes.
Right? I'm holding up the Tel Dan inscription, which has the House of David in Paleo Hebrew as an actual artifact found in Israel.
Yes.
I just want everybody to think about something, and as I'm saying it, I want to read a quote from our princess on in our chat. She says, "The ignorance it takes to tell folks actually in the land where it's located, especially never having been there themselves, is quite astounding." That's like someone not ever having gone to my house, come into my home, and tell people that the rooms and locations of items in my home are misplaced because they really belong to this region and that region. And they're saying this, Ashriel, with no archaeological data. You see, one of the things that's unique about telling history is that history comes with various monikers necessary to place said history. You understand this very well. You have a degree. I have been studying you. You have a degree in political science.
Yes, sir.
But as someone who lives in the state of Israel, born there, you live in one of the parts of the world that's like a museum to the globe. Everybody's fixated on the history of the Bible. Israel is a walking museum, as it were. There's hardly a place that you can go that we haven't had a treasure trove of artifacts from. So just imagine that the narrative that's being formed is taking away from the amazing work that has been spearheaded by you. So I thank you for that. We won't stay on that, because I also want to say this. The goal of critique among brothers and sisters is never to let our brothers and sisters look or appear ill-informed, look or appear unenlightened, look and appear wicked.
Yes.
But critique is necessary simply for the retelling and retelling of the truth. That's it. So because it's not personal, we won't stay here, and I'll move on to something else. On the idea of misnomers, there's the term that many of us identify ourselves with. We call ourselves Hebrew Israelites. Many groups, organizations, and world religions, and those practitioners of world religions, without naming who they are, will say, well, that's a misnomer, Hebrew Israelite. Number one, you can't find Hebrew Israelite in the Bible, so that's problematic from the outset. So I want to ask you to qualify for us, our viewing audience, the usage and employment of the term Hebrew Israelite, and then explain to us why it's not a misnomer and why it is necessary to use such an appellation.
The term Hebrew Israelite, and also, our connection to the tribe of Judah or the other tribes of Israel, is actually a very correct term, and it gives very clear identification for who we are, coming from the lineage of Abraham, because Abraham was a Hebrew. He was that first Hebrew who had crossed over from one lifestyle to the other, from one country to the other, from who he was beforehand, Abram, to Abraham. He became something and someone else from where he was beforehand. Him being a Hebrew means that all of his his children, his progeny, would then also be Hebrews. He didn't only have one child, Isaac. He also had Ishmael and other children that we read about later on. So all of them then will be considered Hebrews. Ishmael and all of his other children will be considered Hebrews. But now, how do we identify the seed from which that Hebrew is continuing through as Hebrew Israelites? We identify that seed as going through Yitzchak or Isaac, who then also gave birth to multiple children. Amongst them were Jacob and Esau. Now, again, from Abraham all the way down to Jacob and Esau, all of these people will be considered Hebrews. But Israelites is very specific and direct to the progeny then of Jacob, of Israel. And so we wanted to make it clear that when we say we are Hebrews, we are Hebrew Israelites. We're not Hebrew Ishmaelites.
Come on.
We're not Hebrew Idumeans. We are Hebrew Israelites going through the lineage of Israel, of Jacob, because his 12 sons then became the children or the nation of Israel. And so we wanted to make it clear to people that when we say Hebrew Israelites, we're speaking specifically about those who began, that progeny at Abraham through Isaac and then through Jacob, opposed to Abraham and then, for example, through Ishmael or his other children, or through Esau or his other children. We're saying specifically that this is how our lineage continues. So me being, a son of Minister Bechuria, Sar Bechuria, I would make it clear then that I am an Israelite, the son of
Come on.
Sar Bechuria, the son of, and then go, through, because my father had multiple siblings. But I want to make it clear that I'm not just coming from, his father, which is my grandfather. I want to make it clear that I'm coming through my grandfather and then his son, who is my father, and then my children would then continue through my progeny. And so then that gives a very clear root understanding of where we are going with this seed. And so it's important to say Hebrew Israelites. No, you're not going to read about a Hebrew Israelite in the Bible, but you are going to read about the Hebrews in the Bible and the Israelites in the Bible and all who were not Israelites, but who were Hebrews as well. So we want to make it clear that, no, I'm not talking about that. This is my family tree. That's Abraham, right. Isaac, Jacob, Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, and I'm from one of those tribes.
This has been the most affirming, edifying, and validating, even as echoed in the comment section, of an explanation for this particular topic that I've ever heard on this particular podcast. So I thank you dearly for that. The next thing I want to speak towards is what some may call reactionary descriptions. I watched an interview. Much of the questions that I'm asking you are generated from my personal interests. They're generating from what I know my audience would want me to ask you, as well as me painstakingly taking the time necessary to watch through all of your videos to see what are your strengths and, if possible, any weaknesses, and to know how to engage you. So there's an interviewer that asks you in one of your interviews, essentially they're asking you to condemn Israelite groups here in America that are making what they would frame as a racial distinction and saying that the black people in America are the real Jews of the Bible. And the interviewer was basically pushing you to condemn people who say that, because a Jew is a Jew no matter where they're from. And nobody's saying that there's not other Jews. And I watch you skillfully address it without the need to do what the interviewer was attempting to have you do, which is assassinate the character of your brother. So I'll ask you to briefly just revisit the concept for a moment. What are your thoughts on black people in America self-describing as the real Jews in the Bible, and If it is a reactionary title, what is the basis of it in your thinking?
Remember, just I'm remembering that comment or that interview. It was 6 minutes long.
That's right.
And they had asked me to actually come on to speak about something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then they thought they were going to put me in a corner.
That's right.
Because I wasn't coming on to speak about what was taking place in America at that time with, those brothers and sisters who were marching for Kyrie from IUIC
right.
and others. They didn't say that that's what we were going to be talking about. They said they wanted to talk about something totally different. Once I get on and we start the conversation, I'm expecting one thing, but it's always good to be prepared.
That's
because
right.
you never know. So, he asked me, Black Hebrew Israelites, Black Hebrew. We've never identified as Black Hebrew Israelites or anything.
Come on.
We are Hebrew Israelites. This is what we have said. This is what we continue to say. The racializing of us as Black Hebrew Israelites did not come from us. It came from people who had a problem with us identifying with the people in the Bible.
Come on.
And so because they had a problem with us, we didn't start a war with anybody saying that you all are not the real people. We just said that this is who we are. Remember, even in New York, the early, in the beginning with Rabbi Matthews, they wanted to be part of the board of rabbis in New York. But did you know, and I'm sure you did know, that all the way up until just a few years ago, they never even received a response.
Just a few years ago. That's right.
A few years ago, they only received a response to join the board of rabbis.
That's right.
Who were on that board of rabbis that didn't want us to be a part of the board of rabbis?
Come on.
It wasn't us. We were not the ones who were creating this. We were not the ones to say when we arrived to Israel in 1968, the first members of the community who arrived in 68, and we said that we are the children of those Israelites who had gone into exile, taken into America to be enslaved against our will. We were forced to take on an identity of people that wasn't our identity. Our names were forcibly changed. Our day of worship was forcibly changed. Our mores, our folklore, they broke us down and then built us up into something else totally different. But we're saying that we're going back to reclaim our identity. Why is that a problem for us to re-identify as who we actually are before we had become who they made us into? But that's an issue not for us. We didn't create that issue. That came from others. And so the identity of a Black Hebrew Israelite came from others who didn't want to be identified with us. And so that was a response to their racializing of this identity. You still have people today who say, when they know good and well that Abraham was a Sumerian,
come on,
of African ancestry and descent. They know good and well that the nation of Israel was established when receiving the Torah in Sinai after coming out of Egypt with a mixed multitude of Egyptians who we know clearly were people of African ancestry, and established themselves in the land of Canaan, who we know that Canaan is a child of Ham, who the world have put forth that Ham was cursed to be Black as a way of justifying the enslavement of people of African ancestry by saying that this is something that had been decreed for us for the rest of our lives. Now they're saying that us being people of African ancestry and of this darker hue, we don't have any connection to the children of Israel in the Bible. Are you kidding me?
Break it down.
But we're not going to argue with anybody about who they are.
Come on.
You say who you are. I'm not in the game of defining for other people. There's some people, Zion, who identify today as cats. Some people identify they're men and they say they identify as a woman.
A
They are women, they say they identify as a man. I'm not in the game of identifying you. I'm telling you who I am.
Come on.
And if you have a problem with me telling you who I am, the problem is not with me. The problem is with you. And so we are exposing the people who have a problem with us, not us having a problem with anybody else. You can be whoever you say you are. The book says, I mean, there were people who converted. There were people who joined the family. I mean, Ruth was a Moabitess woman who her grandson became the king of Israel. She joined in and on to the family. So nobody is saying that you can't join in and on to the family, but you can't also simultaneously say that the family members that you are looking at, they don't have any connection to the family because you said so.
Because you said so. Come on.
Because you said so. That don't work like that. And so when it comes time to do it, we speak about these things. And you're not going to put us in a corner to try and force us to throw our brothers and sisters under the bus. Because even, in families, you have family feuds, you have disagreements internally, family members. Some people may be, one way, other people may be a different way. They may not agree on everything. You fight with family members all the time.
All the time.
But you're not going to now say that because you have a problem with your family member, or you don't specifically agree with the way that they're going about things, that they're all wrong. Let's have the conversation first about who has tried to tell us that we were, how do they say it? They say that we are appropriating someone else's identity. Oh, really?
Culture vultures. They call us the culture vultures.
They call us the culture vultures. We haven't done anything to anybody. We were not the ones who didn't allow the brothers to be on the board of rabbis.
Come on.
We were not the ones to say that Prophet Crowdy, was out of his mind. He just woke up one day and just decided that he was an Israelite, a Hebrew Israelite, and just said he's going to go along with that. We weren't the ones that said that Ben Ammi, my spiritual leader, was smoking something, and then he said that the angel was revealed to him because he was high on something. We didn't say that. We didn't say that none of the rabbis, of the Ashkenazi and the other community, they were smoking something because they said they received revelations. We don't disrespect anybody else's culture. We don't disrespect anybody else's idea, but they disrespect us all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And so when we say something about that, then we become the problem because we are nipping that now in the bud. We are saying, no, this is it. You've now went and changed history totally. This is the history. However you see that you fit into that history, more power to you.
That's right.
But don't tell me who I am. Who are you to define for me who I am?
Come on. No man has that right.
No man has that right. And so my leader in the 1970s in Israel, he looked them in the face and he said, I am a Hebrew Israelite. He said, I identify as Hebrew Israelite. I am a Hebrew Israelite. And he said, and who is to say any different? I said what I said. This is what I said. I said what I said. I am who I am. And who's going to say any different? That's the posture that we're coming with now.
That's right. I want to shift gears as we draw towards the close of the dialogue. I want to shift gears. Remember, everyone, to please share the live stream, thumb up the video, and show your love. I'm going to ask Ashriel if it's possible for you. I don't know what outlets you use financially, but we would love to support the work that you're doing. We would love to financially support the work that you're doing. So if there's an outlet that we can send to you right now, whether you're using Cash App, Zelle, I'm not sure what's used in Israel, but just let us know in the comment section. And if you don't use any of the above, then at least leave a point of contact, like an email, because we would like to financially support the work that you're doing. Because it's one thing to hear a dynamic speaker, a thought leader, and an activist, and the best that we have to give them is the black fist.
Yeah.
That that doesn't work. We have to actually support our leaders and our teachers in the community. So while I'm getting the next question ready, if it's at all possible, could you please just type that in our chat room? Or even if you put it in the private chat here, I'll share it live for everyone to see.
I have PayPal.
That works. That certainly works.
But I need to find how do I get the information of the PayPal.
Well, all we would need is your PayPal Gmail. If you supply us with the PayPal Gmail, then when the person opens up their PayPal to send money, they'll send a request and PayPal will ask, well, what's the sender's number or email? So if we have your email, that's all that's necessary, your PayPal email. All right. So you have time. You don't have to do it right at this moment. You still have time throughout the duration of the live.
No, while it's on my mind. So I just sent it to you in the chat right here.
Okay, great. I see it. Excellent. Got it. So please, family, right now, if you guys can, please show your love and your support for our brother. And I'm going to make sure that I put PayPal. And moderators, please, moderators, continue to share this PayPal link throughout the duration of the live stream, right? Throughout the duration of the live stream, moderators, share this PayPal link for our Ashriel so that we can help him to do what he's doing, not just in Israel, guys, but when you follow his walk and his journey, the brother is traveling the world and speaking on behalf of the rights of our people, the rights of humanity, and speaking towards issues that directly affect us. So he's a young brother in Israel, right? I say young. Sometimes when an old head, we're just going to call it what it is. Sometimes when an old head speaks of a younger, dynamic personality as being a young person, they are trying to marginalize them. Oh, that's my little homie. That when I say it, it's out of genuine care to let us know that not only do we need to know who he is and what he is, but remember, because of his age, we read in the Torah, the youth for strength and the old for wisdom. He has the feet to do the legwork necessary. He has been leaning on the elders and their wisdom is shining through him. But me and many like me and people older than me, I'm pushing 50. We can no longer do the legwork of a person like him because there are so many things that tie us down and prevent us, some of which may even be health issues. He has to be supported. There's no way to go around that. Like, there should be no objection. There's no way to go around it. Support this brother, family. Please support him. All right. So we certainly have a couple of more things to cover, but I'm going to ask the moderators. Moderators, do not forget, please share his PayPal. And when you share his PayPal, please put his name in there so that everyone can see that it's going towards Ashriel more, that Israel and Dimona. So the next thing that I want to ask you is to touch on a little bit more controversy, right? So the fire on the thermostat is turning up a little bit, right? So the next thing is, there's a phenomena since the 60s among African Americans in the diaspora, not just America, all throughout the African diaspora. We want to support Arab communities in the Middle East because we relate to their plight. We relate to their struggles in many ways. But here's something that we may not know. The complexities on the ground for how these different Arab groups behave and react even towards our people. I watched the video and I had to literally pull my own coattail because I too am a person that goes online and says, before we support the others, I'm going to support the Arabs because we can identify with their struggle. Until I watched your video a couple of weeks ago where you spoke about Hamas sending bombs that actually landed in areas where not only Black, quote unquote, Israelites live, but Afro-Palestinians, Eritreans, Ethiopians. These bombs that are going off, the bombs don't have intel on it that says land on Ashkenazi homes alone.
No, sir.
They're sent indiscriminately. You've even lost, may the Creator bless and keep his family, and may the family and the community find consolation. But the community of Dimona even lost a brother performing at a bar mitzvah due to a bombing that took place. I want you in this moment to talk to us about the complexities about the need and desire for African Americans to want to support Arabs in the Middle East because of their struggles, but teach us as someone on the ground about just how complex that can be.
I'm happy that you brought that up, Zion, because our people have a hard time with conceptualizing these groups in their proper context, because we deal with emotion a lot of times. And one thing that my leader Ben Ammi taught us is that we have to take our emotions out of it. We have to deal with geopolitical, historical, and prophetic fact. Now, the fact is, or I'll start with the facts. The facts are that all of North Africa, including Israel, all of West Asia, which would be considered Lebanon and Syria and Iran and Iraq and all these countries. The fact is that these countries all were conquered by the Arab conquerors. In 632, after Prophet Muhammad had passed away, his predecessor, Osman and Abu Bakr, they were the ones who had carried out these conquests, and they were the ones who had Arabized all of these places, all the way down into the Sudan and over through the Sahel and all the way over into West Africa and other places. They conquered at one point. The Arab conquest had control of all the region from Saudi Arabia in the east, going up also into India, through North Africa, West Asia, all the way over into Spain. All of these areas were considered part of the Arab world. Now, all of these areas have their own indigenous peoples. They have their own indigenous cultures. They have their own traditions. They have their own religions. But they were forced to take on an identity that today, when you look at this entire region, you just automatically say that this is part of the Arab world without even understanding how did that even come to be. That was through conquest. And from the moment that they had conquered at the least Israel in 635 AD, from that point and onward, you had the Arabs who were in control from 635 AD. Then you had, after them, you had the Crusades who had taken it over from the Arabs. But then after the Crusades, you had the Mamluks, and then you had the Ottomans. Now, this is, from 635 AD up until the end of the First World War, which was in 1917, they had controlled this entire region. But only with the dismantling of the Ottoman Empire after they had lost the war, and then between Britain and France, which was called the Sykes-Picot Agreement, they then decided how they were going to carve out these lands and how they were going to control these lands. And then they had the mandate on these lands, and the French, they created some of the countries like Syria and Lebanon. Israel was created by, or was allowed to be created through the British mandate on Palestine. So it was Palestine, it was Syria, and it was also Transjordan, which it was called at that point, right? So all of these lands, so they had control over these lands because the Ottomans had lost the war. And so the establishment of the state of Israel and then other states would then begin to be created. The Arab peoples, and I'm not talking about all Arabs, but because you have some, who are as black as I am now, and if you read the book by the great Chancellor Williams, when he's talking about the destruction of black civilization, he talks about the fact that the Arabs and the Europeans did a big one on us on the African continent. But the only difference between the both of them is that we had been tricked into believing that somehow, some way, the Arabs are now our friends. But they weren't, and they aren't, and they have never been. Because you can still look at who were the ones that had begun the slave trade, which was called the trans-Saharan slave trade, that had taken our brothers and sisters into all parts of what they called the Arab world. They did that.
Come on.
Who were the ones that that it stripped us of our identity and forced us to become Arabized? And then the Europeans had taken from them an example of what to do and how to do it, and then they went and implemented that and went harder with it. They were the ones that did that. Who are the ones who, when we look at today, they have applications in Saudi Arabia and in other countries in the Gulf, in the Gulf area, that they're actually auctioning off our people that are coming from Sudan and Eritrea and other places looking for work, but then they have this system in place that allows these workers to be able to take away their passports and then effectively treat them as slaves in these countries. Who's doing that still to our people until this very day? Who consider us abid, slave in Arabic? These people today still. You look at the Afro-Palestinian brothers and sisters who are in East Jerusalem, who are in Gaza, residing in a city or in a neighborhood that is called the neighborhood El Abid, where 1% of the population are people of African ancestry residing there, and they still consider them as slaves because a lot of them were brought from Sudan and from Eritrea to work for the lighter-skinned Arabs, and still until this very day, they still refer to them as slaves. Who did that? You look at the brothers and sisters who are identifying as Afro-Palestinians. There's no difference between them identifying as Afro-Palestinians or being forced to identify as Afro-Palestinians as we are being forced to identify as Black Hebrew Israelites.
Come on.
It's the same exact thing. And anybody who believes that the Arab imperialistic ideology and idea does not exist today, you're mistaken big time. I can give you articles right now, still at this very moment, where you had one of the Arab sisters who is represented in Congress. I forget her name, but she went over to Dearborn in Michigan, trying to advocate for, or against some of the police brutality, against our people in that area. And do you know that the brothers and sisters of Arab identity there asked her, why is she doing so? That's going to put us in a situation where now they're going to be looking at us as being racist. Why would you try and help this community? Why are you doing so? Why are you speaking against the police commissioner who is an Arab person? Why are you doing so? You should not be involved in that. Do you know that at this very moment in time, our brothers and sisters are being marginalized, are experiencing racism, being discriminated against in the West Bank? I was there not too long ago with my brothers and sisters in Jericho, and my sister took me on a tour to be able to see the Afro-Palestinian communities there who are not receiving any aid right now, even though they have brothers and sisters who are down in Gaza. But you have people who are raising billions of dollars right now in the name of helping the Palestinians in need, but billions of dollars have been raised and sent over to communities also in the West Bank, and they didn't get a penny from that money.
Come on, say it.
So I'm trying to figure out, what part of these Arab people are you supporting when you're looking at Hamas?
Good brother, I want to say to you, I apologize, but I want to say to you this moment, I stand corrected. And this goes back again to what I mentioned earlier about blindly following men, ideas, or ideals, blindly following it. right? There's only one persona that we are entitled to blindly follow, and that is the Creator, right? And that is based on the notion that emuna, what we're calling faith and trust for us in the Creator, is built on this the idea that even where and when I cannot see, the Creator is able to see. And so we trust his foresight and his vision before that of ours, even to the extent of blindly trusting the foresight of the Creator. But that should never be relegated towards the thinking, imagination, and vision of men to trust them blindly. So I want to say that I'm not too proud to say, as someone, older than you, that I stand corrected, because the moment you said that, and see, that's the thing about truth. The moment you said it, it resonated with me, which takes humility to even happen. But do continue, good brother, because we need this. I want you to close that point, and then I have just about 2 more questions for you, and then we're closing out.
So I will, in regards to our people who are in the West Bank, Afro-Palestinian people, we're not receiving any assistance, who are being marginalized and experiencing racism and discrimination and oppression at the hands of the PA, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. My sisters have been thrown in jail a few times for speaking out against this in the West Bank. We have brothers and sisters who are experiencing some of the same things down in Gaza. They've been quieted so that they wouldn't speak against these things. You have organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah who see us as just as much an enemy as anybody who resides here in Israel, just by virtue of us residing here in Israel. When on October 7th, the people rushed into Israel, they were not considering who is and who isn't. They lynched and then shot 32 bullets. 32 bullets into a brother of African ancestry.
Come on, that needs to be told.
They've been holding on for over 10 years to a brother of the Ethiopian community called Avera Mengistu, who had crossed over the border because he had mental issues. They've been holding him in captivity as a hostage for over 10 years. You had a brother who was taken also into Gaza, who was a Tanzanian. They couldn't even get into Gaza, and they just shot so many bullets into him and let his body just come back to Israel. We're not even worried about him. They had Ethiopian brothers and sisters who were at the Nova party who were killed at that party. Not by, and I know people are going to start talking about these Apache helicopters and all of those things. No. I have a picture of a sister who spoke to me directly about what took place there. Let me show this picture.
Please do. Please do.
These type of things cause people to go back and to have to really do some research and look into things because you can't just say anything and just get away with it. That don't work like that. Let me show you. Now, this is a sister of African ancestry. I mean, by what they're saying, she should have been spared, right? Her life should have just been spared. I mean, they see us as as comrades in the struggle. And by the way, even though you say that they see us as comrades in the struggle, I remember that just a few weeks ago, when it was said that Black people in America, people of African ancestry, were going to be supporting Kamala Harris, did that community come out and really rebuke our brothers and sisters for doing so? Because they were saying that they're going to vote for who they believe, whether it's true or not true, whether she's actually going to support us or not. They were just saying that we shouldn't have the right to decide for ourselves in terms of our domestic policy, who we would like to vote for, because they have an issue with her somewhere else and what she's representing or not. But I didn't see nobody talking about what's taking place in Sudan.
Come on.
Was taking place in Eritrea.
Teach us.
what's taking place in Haiti, what's taking place in Congo. So if you care so much for human lives, and it just, it just irks your soul to see what's taking place in Gaza, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't want to see the children dying and all these innocent people in the destruction, and I don't want to see that. And I hope this war ends. We had our own casualty in this war yesterday from our community, a young son, 19 years old. I don't want to see this taking place, but I also am able to call out BS when I see it. Because if you care that much about some children starving, you have more than 20 million people who are experiencing these things all throughout the African continent, and you don't have a word to say about that.
Come on.
When you see all of these people who have been displaced from their homes all throughout the African continent, and you don't say a word about that. When you know that the ones who are causing the most destabilization on the African continent are those organizations, those militaristic, jihadist organizations like Al-Shabaab, like Al-Qaeda Sahel, like Boko Haram, like all of these organizations that are causing turmoil, that are killing our people every day, and you don't have nothing to say about that. I'm sorry. I don't believe in what you're saying. I think that this is just a political move because it's politically fashionable at this moment.
Come on.
Because other than that, you would have had a lot to say about what's taking place. Because as worse, as bad as whatever is taking place in Gaza right now, and it's bad, it's 30 times worse all throughout the African continent. You don't have anything to say about that. You haven't been marching in the streets saying anything about what's taking place in Congo. You haven't been saying free these countries from the hold of these radical Islamic organizations. You haven't said anything about that.
Come on.
So you expect me to believe that you care so much about people. And the war in Gaza has been taking place for a year now. And as bad as it is, you haven't said anything about what's taking place in other places. I cannot buy that.
Cannot.
I can't. And I have the picture of our sister. This is not a sister. Does she look like? You see her?
Come on. Yes, we can see that. Mm-hmm.
This is our picture. This is our sister. Now, luckily, she survived. Luckily, she survived, and this is how she was looking. Once she had come through it, and now she's looking way better today. This is when she was laying on the bed. Okay, our Ethiopian sister. So, didn't nobody consider her because of her skin color? Nobody's considering our brothers and sisters whose buildings have been hit by rockets in Ashkelon, and they needed to evacuate their homes and were away from their homes for longer than 8 months.
Right.
Nobody cared about rockets being launched from Hezbollah, from Hamas, or from Iran that are threatening our brothers and sisters here in Dimona. Nobody worried about those people who were injured or killed in the West Bank, but because of these bombs. As a matter of fact, even Arab people were killed.
That's right.
By these bombs. Druze in the north, 12 children killed. The other week, when Iran began to strike, the only person who was killed was in Jericho, and he was a Palestinian brother. So, like, what are you saying about this indiscriminate? How is that expected to reach any type of goal? So I'm sorry, but I deal with the geopolitical, the historical, and the prophetic facts. I don't get involved in this emotionally, and I had to express that, my brother, because a lot of our brothers and sisters just don't understand, just don't know, just don't know that there's 500,000 of us here in Israel that are affected by everything that's taking place here. 500,000 of our brothers and sisters, but
the last 2 points that I have for you, that we're going to close out in. We're going to close out with some words about Ben Ammi and what he means to our struggle. And but before we do that, just one more point of controversy, but this one directly speaks towards the African Hebrew Israelites in Dimona. Could you update us on the deportation that was taking place almost 2-3 years ago, and what, if any, are any available updates today about the process to deport African Hebrew Israelites in Dimona?
So it goes all the way back to the 1970s, where the first members of the community who had come into Israel in 1968 and 1969 were given full citizenship and all of the benefits that came along with that as new olim, or those who had been repatriating under the law of return. And the law of return in 1950 said that anybody who has any type of affinity or feels in their hearts that they're connected to Israelites, they have the right to return to a state now that they said was established for that purpose. And so we took them up on the deal then. We said, we're coming back home. Okay, a state is established now, taken out of the hands of the Ottomans after 500 years, and then all the others who would control the land up until now. You have a state that you're saying that you're calling all of those who identify as Israelites back home. We're coming, not a problem at all. When we started coming, and then too many of us began coming, then they changed the law of return, and they amended it in 1970, saying that, now, mind you, this is just 3 years after the first members had come to Israel, and then we had continued to come. It said, no, the law of return now says that only those who we could identify as Jews are able to return. And how did they define who's a Jew? Someone who was born to a Jewish mother, halachically, or someone who converted halachically. We couldn't prove either of those. One, we weren't following the halakha, but number two, we had just come out of 400 years of slavery. What documents did we have to be able to show anything?
Come on.
And so we weren't able to show that. And so the first order of business was, first of all, to demonize us, to make us, in the eyes of the world, seem like, we are just some imposters. We are doing some damage, some harm to the land, to the country. We came to Israel illegally from America in order to establish ourselves in a city called Dimona. So we were running from America to establish ourselves in Dimona, running from New York, running from Chicago, from Los Angeles, from DC, to establish ourselves in a city where in the 1970s or 1960s, that was Dimona. What today is 30,000 people reside here, but no one was running to Israel, to Dimona, to give up your American passport that everybody is looking to go the opposite way in a 1970s. That wasn't, no, absolutely not. But they had an issue with that, and so they revoked the legal status from everybody who had received it initially, and then now we had begun a political fight, and so we found a political solution in the 1990s that were going to give us a temporary residency. And then in 2003, the Minister of Interior he directed his ministry to provide permanent residency status to everybody who resides in the community, everybody who's part of the community. Well, what do you know? That the government didn't hold up for longer than 1 year. The government failed. The next minister who came in did not consider continue that same policy. And so for 20 years, we were for 10 years from that point, we were still looking for solutions. Now, mind you, in the meantime, we have new children born. We have those who didn't have any status because they were dragging their feet with it, because they didn't carry out the decision from the previous minister. We had those people who just didn't receive anything. So now you have those who are stateless because they were born in Israel to fathers and mothers who didn't have any Israeli citizenship, and then they were third generation, so they couldn't get American citizenship. You had those who had American citizenship, but that's all they had, so they couldn't get any benefits from Israel. And then you had those who luckily were able to actually go through the process. And so in 2021, April, after 5 years that they had totally ignored us, we were trying, submitting the names of the people who fell between the cracks. They totally ignored us. But in 2021, in April, they told us that there was now an opening for us to be able to submit these names, so that the same names that we had been submitting all these years. They said there was a new minister of Interior, there was a new head of population control who were, and then they said there were some court decisions that had favored us. And so this will be the opportune time to actually go ahead and take advantage of it. And so, I mean, we had been submitting these names for the longest. So, I mean, submitting the names again, I mean, that's not a problem at all. We submit the names to them. And then instead of those people receiving their residency status, they receive 8 months later letters of deportation, tell them that they have 60 days to leave Israel. Now, these are people who were born and raised here, who don't know of any other place. These are people who have been here for 30, 40 years. These are people who have established themselves here. So what are they supposed to do? Where are they supposed to go? And we were asking the questions about the children who were born here, third generation. Where are they supposed to go? Well, we'll give them a temporary residency status so they can be able to go to the, wherever they go, it'll make us no difference, but they're not coming back here once they leave. So we said, no, we're not going to do that. Absolutely not. And we went on an all-out campaign to fight that. And so we managed to make some strides where of those 135 people who were threatened with deportation, the court had decided that the case was going to be returned to the Ministry of Interior, and they would need to find a solution to this problem, because in the court had written it that they had not followed through on a lot of things that they were supposed to be doing that they didn't do. And so as a result of that, we're in this condition now. Had they just went ahead and provided everybody legal status at one time, we wouldn't be in this condition. We wouldn't be in this position, but they didn't do it. And so the court called them out about that and said that, they need to find a more liable solution. Their solution was, okay, we'll give 6 families out of all of the families who are threatened with deportation legal status, but we're going to send the other ones through what is called the Humanitarian Committee. The Humanitarian Committee is a committee where they actually bury everything there. So you could be in the Humanitarian Committee for 20 years and they don't really consider you at all. That was just another way to try and to kind of get us out of their faces. And we know that was the case, because we initially said we wanted to then submit. We submitted for the Humanitarian Committee. They said, no. Your community specifically cannot submit for the Humanitarian Committee as individuals, because we see you all as one group. And then now they're saying that you can't submit as one group because we see every one of y'all as individuals. You see the mind games that they're playing? So these were the games that they're playing in order to be able to get around really providing us what we deserve. So
even after the goalpost has been set, they see the need to change it when it fits their desire to not fulfill on their own wishes.
As soon as we get a little close, soon as we get a little close, it's always moved a little further and a little further and a little further until there have been people, unfortunately, who've given up and like, look, I'm not about to be going through this stress. I'm just going to leave. They don't want me here. I'm just going to leave. And there have been people who've left. But, we know that the tactic is, in the strategy that they're trying to implement, is one of war of attrition, that we're just going to wear them out, until they don't want to fight anymore. They don't have any more money to fight. They don't have any more will to fight. The Israeli population public is no longer in their favor. So, we'll just draw it out as long as possible. So now we're in the 4th year of this, continuing to fight this. And let me tell you something. We're going to win. We're going to win.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to win. It's just a matter of time. We are going to win.
One thing we know about the Holy Land, Ashriel, is that the Creator decides who's coming in there.
Yes, sir.
And the Creator has always decided who's staying in there.
Yes, sir.
And the mere fact, and let's all stand at a biblical space right now, right? From the lens of Torah, the mere fact that this community was allowed by, I'm not going to say man, because we have higher information. We have access to higher knowledge.
Yes.
So we're going to say rightfully that by the mere fact that the Creator allowed this community to make Aliyah to Israel means that the Creator sanctioned it. And because this act of Aliyah return was sanctioned by the Creator, it can only be taken away by the Creator. So we're not fearing what they're saying on pen, pad, and paper, because our trust and allegiance is to the Holy One of Israel. That's where we stand on that. So the last point that I have for you is a bit of a build-up. So just give me a second to work, right?
Yes.
As early as, and I know that there are prior leaders, but I want to start with this leader because of the junction and avenues that connect politically. As early as Marcus Messiah Garvey, we've seen the rise of the Black Messiah. This country has been fearful of the rise of a Black Messiah. COINTELPRO, J. Edgar Hoover, literally wrote it into the FBI records that the rise of a Black Messiah is detrimental towards the direction of the America that they wish to see persevere. So the question now arises, what are the implications here? Because first and foremost, they could have framed this the rise of a Negro leader. They could have even framed this the rise of an influential colored person. But they specifically framed this as the rise of a Black Messiah. So me always thinking out the box, Ashriel, I ask myself questions constantly. What do they know that the world don't know or that somebody's hiding? But the point is, what do they know? Because why frame it as it is, the Black Messiah? Let's just be real. We've had Black Messiahs among us. Their acknowledgement of it does not do much for us because we are already aware of that, but their retelling of it is very telling.
Yes.
They know something that
Yes.
they're not admitting.
Yes.
They're aware of who this people is. I read somewhere in the book of Shemot, in the book of Exodus, let us deal wisely with them. They've been dealing wisely with us here in the States. They're even attempting to deal wisely with those of our brothers and sisters in Dimona. There is a plan at stake by several world governments, and I know I sound like I'm speaking of a conspiracy. I know I sound like I'm speaking of a cabal, but when we encounter certain information, it has to provoke thought. So I want you to address something. Marcus Garvey was certainly a prolific thinker and leader, but we're going to say he was a messianic personality that has walked among us. Malcolm X was a prolific thinker and leader, but we're going to say he was certainly a messianic leader that walked among us. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prolific thinker and leader and was certainly a messianic leader among us. And in his last words, he leaves us with an impression that is indelible in the minds and hearts of many that follow his work and the work of contemporary thought leaders. As Dr. Martin Luther King is about to give his last breath, literally a day before he passes, he delivers a speech. And in this speech, he speaks of having made it to the promised land.
Yes.
And how he knew that even if he could not get there, it was revealed to him that we as a people will make it to the promised land.
Yes.
He wasn't speaking about somewhere in New York City where we were setting up shop. He wasn't speaking of a hub in Chicago where we were setting up shop. He wasn't even speaking of the recreating of Israelite cities in Africa. He was speaking about the promised land in Northeast Africa.
Yes.
What's interesting about that is I'm also a historian. And so as a historian, a timeline is important. He makes this speech circa 1968. What's happening around 1968? Oh, you mean Malak Gavriel speaking to Ben Ammi and is telling him that you and your people will now set forth to go to the promised land. How do we know that there has been a prophet among us?
Yes.
Because the word that he has spoken has become true. Martin Luther King said, we as a people shall make it to the promised land, even if I don't get there. And as he was speaking that truth, the angel Gabriel, for all we know, simultaneously was speaking it in the hearing of Ben Ammi. So I want to close where we perfectly should close, by memorializing this great elder with some powerful words. So I want you to close us out with some impact on his message and what we can do to continue that message.
Absolutely. In April of 1968, April 3rd, the great Martin Luther King Jr. gave his final speech in Memphis, Tennessee. And what he did say was that it really doesn't matter what happens with me now. We have some difficult days ahead. He said, but it doesn't matter to me because I've been to the mountaintop.
Woo!
And I don't mind. I would love to live a long life, but longevity has its place. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Come on.
Tonight, I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. In May of 1968, just 1 month later, the first African Hebrew Israelites to return and repatriate to this land, to step foot on this land, took place, fulfilling Martin Luther King's vision, fulfilling the vision that was given to Ben Ammi in 1966 that told him that it was time to leave America en route to the promised land. And we would then tarry in the wilderness of Liberia for about 2.5 years. And then we'll go on into the land. Now you have to see how this was working for us as providence would have it, because it was by no chance that Liberia was set up as a country to allow those who would like to repatriate back to the African continent in 1822, if I'm not mistaken. The person who the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948 was the impetus to turn our eyes back to the promised land as an actual geographical location. The one who was responsible for negotiating the ceasefire between Israel and the Arab countries was Dr. Ralph Bunche, an African American, possibly an Israelite. When we were en route leaving America in 1967, one of the things that needed to happen prior to us returning back to this land was that great city of ours, Jerusalem, would have needed to be reunited once again, because part of it was in the hands of the Arabs. The other part was in the hands of the Jews who had established the state. It needed to be reunited. There was a war that happened in 1967 that reunited Jerusalem. While we were en route to the promised land, we were in Liberia in the meantime. Dr. Martin Luther King gave his speech on April 3rd, 1 month later, 1968, May. The first Hebrew Israelites stepped foot on this land once again. All of that is not by happenstance. That is divine intervention. That is Providence 101, happening right before our eyes. And how do we know? How would we know if the words that had been spoken, he didn't want to accept it in the first beginning? He said that they're going to malign me, they're going to laugh at me, they're going to reject me, they're going to reject the message. But so many things were happening in America also to be a smokescreen for us to be able to get out. You had the great riots that were happening in the 1960s. You had all of the freedom fighters who were talking about anywhere is better than here. We need to leave this place. You had the day that the earth literally stood still with the cold. All of these things were not happening by happenstance. You have to see the providence in it. And so how will we know that the angel had spoken to our leader, Ben Ammi? Not to say that the angels haven't spoken to other people, but he was the one who had taken up the mantle. He was the one who had spoke about it. He was the one who had carried it out. He was the one that, although he was afraid of how they want to see him, he was the one who was going to actually lead the way, and he did that. And we are here today because he followed his calling. And on that note, Ralph, I have to go. I'm so sorry.
Yes, we're gonna leave. There's one thing that I need to give to you that you did not know you'd be receiving.
What's that?
On behalf of Learn Torah Hebrew Academy, we'd like to present Ashriel Moore with a certificate of appreciation for his outstanding qualities and attributes, his great humility and insights, as well as a genuine and deep love for the Creator. On this day of October 20th, 2024, 5785, Nasi Avdiel Ben Levi, also known as Zion Lex of Learn Torah Hebrew Academy, do present this certificate to you. We will be mailing the certificate to you in Eretz Israel. It is an honor that you stopped by today. We cannot wait for you to come back and have some more focused words and more focused dialogues. This platform is yours anytime you need it. Thank you so very much.
Big brother, I appreciate you for allowing me to share this platform with such a brother like you. And I can say that this conversation definitely did reiterate to me, the importance of us continuing and speaking. So thank you to all of our viewing audience for hanging out with us for about 2 hours and so. And shalom.
Shalom. Take care. All right, family. That was an amazing dialogue with Ashriel Moore, also known as Ashriel Ben Israel. In having this dialogue, family, I knew that it would be a powerful dialogue, but to the extent that it would be, I didn't know. But in my mind, I had an idea. You see, Ashriel was born in Israel, and I was born in America. And we are, in a sense, brothers who are returning not just to the same faith, but to the same culture and heritage. And an idea was implanted in my mind immediately. It made me think of something. Do y'all see it? An idea was implanted in my mind, and it made me think of something. Do y'all see it? They say art imitates history, and history imitates art. At what point do we need to realize that our growth and our success is not in seeking after conflict with one another and being at odds with one another, but seeing the common denominator that exists between one another and working together? Individually, oh yeah, we are powerful. The Creator made us that way. But collectively and in our unity, we are unstoppable. And the Creator also has made us that way. I asked the family that if this live stream was impactful for you this afternoon, that you show your love by donating to this platform. Be sure to donate to Ashriel Moore at PayPal. The link is on the live stream. I will also post the link as a comment when this YouTube video is posted. And please, family, do not forget to support Zion Lex TV with a donation as well. I thank you all for helping. It is with your help that we are able to bring these dynamic thinkers. With your continued help, we can keep this thing going. I cannot wait till we have this particular brother to return. There are so many things that him and I can talk about, but it's just too much. 2 hours is impossible to encapsulate the amount of ground that he and I can cover. And I gotta let you know that as skillful as I like to think of myself as, that this brother is equally, if not greater, in certain skill sets. We can cover a lot of ground. So we're gonna have him come back a number of times, may it be the will of the Creator, to touch on conversations like this and others. But I thank you all for all of your love and your support. And this is what we do. This is Zion Lex TV. I'm Rav Zion Ben Levi, Chief Avdiel Ben Levi, Nasi Avdiel Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lex. I say shalom to you all, and I look forward to seeing many of you in our academy. Our next class is this Monday at 8 p.m. We're going to have a Sukkot / Shimnei Atzeret lecture this week as well. Our Torah classes are every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Our Hebrew classes are every Monday and sometimes Friday at 6:30 p.m. and we have a rabbinical course every Friday at 8:30 p.m. If you go to patreon.com/learn Torah, you can see a full list of all of our classes. Shalom and ahava, love to you all. Shalom, family.
I was personally very amazed by your level. I was not judgmental at all. I did not knew. But what I've seen today in many yeshiva that put my legs where I went through, many are not at your level at all. And I will really say to all the people who study under you to believe that they have a real master. Because the way you receive us, the way you explain the Torah, the fire you bring through your explanation, it's like a stamp on the fact that you are a real one, a real sage. It will be my honor to share, to talk more about Learn Torah Hebrew Academy.
But you dress like a Ben Torah? And people are bothered by that? Or like even say this idea of like saying like, why would I not call Rav Zion HaGadol? Why would I not? How many people has he been teaching for how many years? Do you know what greatness that is? To even have the merit to teach Torah to people, that God even gave you, put you in a position in life that's something that people, you know how many people I've met, they're like, yeah, you know, Rav Zion's, I should learn with him, blah, blah, blah. Like I told you, the Hart family, right?
Yeah, amazing family.
Yeah, they're moving to Israel, right? Or maybe they're already here, who knows? But the point is just saying that, like, they were inspired by your teachings, right? And there's been so many other people who've been inspired by your teachings. All right, perfect. So again, it's amazing to be here with Rav Zion and just, you know, having this conversation. And the conversation is great. You know, it's also, I also feel like it's a gift for me as well, like, because there's so many deep and amazing insights that Rav Zion brings out, and it gets me thinking. And when I look back on these conversations, you know, on YouTube, you know, I hear a lot of the things he's saying again, and it's like, wow, that was really deep. And the other, you know, I talked to other rabbis too in our community, and they were like, it's like, yeah, I saw the thing you do with like Zion. He's like, and I was like, yeah, he's like, they're like, he knows a lot. You know, and I'm like, yeah, like, you know, like, but like they said, he's like, he knows a lot, you know.
Shalom, shalom, family. This is your brother Avdiel Ben Levi, otherwise known as Zion Lex. Go to Amazon and purchase all of my books. Type in my author name, Avdiel Ben Levi, or you can also type in Zion Lex. There you'll find some of my earliest books and my latest works. It was written and engraved. The DNA of Sound, the Star of David Controversy, Ancient Kemet on Trial, Patriarchs of the Covenant, Matriarchs of the Covenant, and my two foremost books that are critically acclaimed on Amazon, and even one has become a bestseller, and that's going to be the Messiah Codex Volume 1 and Messiah Codex Volume 2. So go to Amazon.com today, type in my name, Avdiel Ben Levi, otherwise known as Zion Lex, and there you can purchase all of my books. Peace and shalom, family.
All right. It's your brother Zion Lex. Sign up for our online academy, which is Learn Torah Hebrew Academy at patreon.com/Learn Torah. There are several classes that we offer. We offer a Biblical Hebrew 101 class for beginners. We have a Biblical Hebrew 102 class for people who are a little bit more advanced. We also have a weekly Torah class. We also have our Patriarchs of the Covenant course, our Matriarchs of the Covenant course, and a bi-weekly rabbinical course. All of these courses can be found on Patreon. Again, that's patreon.com/Learn Torah. You guys are definitely in for it. It's a very invasive class. All of our classes are deeply invasive and very, very meticulous to the T when it comes to understanding the culture, the heritage, and the history of our ancient ancestors. So sign up for Biblical Hebrew at patreon.com/Learn Torah. I am your brother, Zion Lex.
I want to say this. We have to support each other. We have to support Black businesses. I must say, when it comes to Biblical Hebrew and you want to study it, my brother Zion Lex has classes. He doesn't only teach biblical Hebrew, he teaches Medu-Neter. Please, you want to learn? Absolutely. Go to him. Let him teach you what he has mastered. It's beautiful to watch him display it. If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these two books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lex. This is a masterpiece.
What Hebrew Israelite you think is the best though?
The best?
Daniel, Allah?
I think Captain, as far as the debate, is the epitome in the One West community.
I agree. I think
Zion is a very good debater. If he wants to do the whole Sumer thing or whatever, we could chop it up after the book. I mean, it's up to him.
now as far as the true scholarship, I gotta go with Zion Lex on that.
I don't know about true scholarship, but hey, you know.
I'm talking about as far as Hebrew Israelites. I'm going with Zion with the scholarship.
I would go with Divine.
If I was to say Hebrew against Hebrew, I would have to go with Zion Lex.
Well, I'll go with Divine. I think Divine is more thorough. As far as a debater, Zion is the best. Zion and Captain is the best, no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt in my mind. That boy Zion, oh man, he gonna chop this video up, by the way, too. He gonna chop it up, put it on his timeline. You see what Garfield said? When it comes to that debating from the Hebrews, ain't nobody better than Zion and Captain. I'm just gonna say that.
The way to whoever wrote those Hebrew writings was smarter than anybody we have ever met in our life.
Why you say that?
Because when I'm studying the writing, and they have what's called they have idioms. They have idioms, family. They have metaphors. They have epithets. Epithets is like, say, El is the God. So you'd have El Elyon. El Elyon would be probably, no, that's not a good example. But just different names of that same God would be an epithet of that God. They have epithets. They have idioms. Who does that if you're not intelligent? I know that, but I'm just saying they had some sort of numerology in there. When you see Zion going into the whole gematria stuff, that's later on, but they did have some sort of gematria in numeric, alphanumeric thing going. I'm saying this to everybody who is in Kemet. We know how great Kemet is, but whoever wrote the text, whoever wrote that Bible is smart as a mother effer.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me just explain. Abraham, Isaac was the, Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel.
When you wake up in the morning and it's raining in your heart and you feel like you can't make it before you even start, your world is wrapped in darkness and you cannot see the light. And all your situations don't seem to work out right. Open up your vision. Open up the law, and remember just who you are. You're an Israelite. And you'll always be here. Remember the covenant that's passed down from year to year. Oh, oh, shall be. He was sent to old Pharaoh to say, let God's people be. Israel were captive of an unrighteous man, and though Pharaoh would not hearken to the words of the Most High plan, open up your vision, open up the Lord, and remember who you are. You're Israelite, and you'll always be here. Remember the covenant that's out from every year. Whoa, oh, my Lord. Yes, He is our Savior, our hope and guiding light, and He grants us understanding. Yes, He teaches us the light. He will come to our rescue when we give His praises due. So come, let us extol Him. Come on, just me and you. Open up your vision. Open up the Lord, and remember just who you are. You're Israelite, and you'll always be remember to come down. That's out from every year. Whoa, whoa, my Lord.